There's no doubt that across the Halo franchise, there are some of the most beautiful set pieces that can be experienced through a video game medium. But what places are the best spots to sit down and have a picnic in and touch some grass? Well, today, yes, we're going there. We're finding the best places to touch grass in Halo. Now, there's a lot of criteria we had to consider with this topic when going into this video. One big rule is no repeat locations, and you guys will see the criteria we used as we continue through this video. So the first location starting off in Combat Evolved that we thought was a great place was the level Halo, the second level of Combat Evolved, but we wanted to make it very specific. We are not talking about the anniversary version, as the anniversary version makes the grass look a little more deep fried, not necessarily as green and lush as this. But yeah, there's just a lot of great areas on this map. The skybox is cool. There's nice flowing rivers nearby. This is a prime example of a great place with grass. Now, Guilty Spark on the other hand, we weren't too sure that this is the greatest place to touch grass. Yes, there is grass, but also it's the forest at night and it's creepy and there's stuff going on and we just wanted nothing to do with it. Now, mind you, in this journey to find the best levels to touch grass, we checked everything. Like for instance, Sidewinder, really not the greatest grass touching level, but man, the multiplayer map Timberland, now that is a very great looking map. We got grass and some more grass over here too. And honestly, we were just impressed with how great this map looks all of these years later. Now, we did consider other maps like Blood Gulch or something, but maps like this, we can only pick the best version of the map for each location. So we're skipping off on Blood Gulch for now, but I'm pretty sure it'll make an appearance later on. Halo 2, on the campaign side of things, there's a couple of locations we think are amazing. We have a Delta Halo. It's like the antithesis of a grassy temple area. There's grass everywhere you look and some beautiful, breathtaking views as well. You can find a nice little place in the shade if you were going to have a picnic with your Spartan buddies. Now, Regret, not really the greatest place because we've left the grassy area and it's just water all of a sudden. But what if you're an elite, for example? Well, then Uprising is probably a great opportunity because once again, there's some nice grassy patches, some mountainy areas you can climb up to. And the Great Journey, while taking place very close in proximity also to Uprising, is already starting to have some clouds roll in. Like in general, it's a cloudier version of the same area. And it looks like it might rain in about 2 or 3 hours. So really not ideal weather conditions to have a picnic. On the multiplayer side of things, Backwash is a great map if you want to have a picnic with Michael Myers chasing you. Not necessarily the most ideal place, but this also doesn't break our one location per discussion point rule because Backwash technically is a different Halo ring than Guilty Spark from Combat Evolved. Beaver Creek was featured in Combat Evolved and Reach, but Halo 2's just feels kind of the coziest and the grassiest of all of them. We loaded up on Waterworks hoping that this would be a great map for some grass and some shade at the same time. However, it looks like the grass on the walls is just a little bit out of reach, making it too hard to actually touch. And then of course, while we're at it, Containment, not really the best level for touching grass. Then we weren't really sure what to expect on any of the High Charity locations, but we did load up on Gemini and we found this perfect spot right under the tree in the main area. And while we weren't thinking Gemini or High Charity would even make an appearance on this map, literally if you were a Covenant person on High Charity, this spot right here is by far the greatest spot to have a picnic. I mean, it's literally perfect. Moving on to Halo 3's campaign, we have two great locations. Firstly, we have Sierra 117, this nice forest in Africa somewhere. I think we all know that this area is probably really hot temperature wise, but with the amount of shade we actually get in the forest, along with access to the water and some nice places we could sit down, it might not be the worst place if you had to find some grass to touch for a while. But if you're willing to hold out till later on in the campaign, you can get access to one of the greatest grass touching locations of all time, which is the level The Covenant, which takes place on the Ark. Now, interestingly enough, not only do we have a ton of green grass everywhere and nice snow-capped mountains nearby as well, but this specific level and location just seems to breathe for adventure and be a place that you want to go and look in every nook and cranny for your own perfect meditation location. Now, when it comes to the multiplayer map side of things, we wanted to think about considering Guardian for a candidate here. However, because we're so high up in the trees, we can't actually include this one here. There's this little area that almost looks like a perfect fit, but technically it's a tree stump. So unfortunately, Guardian is banned from this list. Then we also looked to Isolation, which looks absolutely gorgeous for a couple of minutes. Then 5 minutes later, the grass starts to get infected with the flood and it starts to spread and it becomes all icky all of a sudden. Yeah, this one's really interesting. It's one of those maps that change over time after loading in. So what did we end up picking? Well, Valhalla is honestly the easiest pick. Do I really need to explain why Valhalla falls into this category? Probably not. I think you guys can see all the lovely locations, and sometimes there's even advertisements for a barbecue that'll show up on this wall over here. Halo 3 had Avalanche, which was an interesting addition to the game. It was kind of a remake of Sidewinder, but yeah, there's no grass in sight here. Then on this Counter-Strike Italy knockoff, we really weren't sure if we were going to be able to include this one either because of just the destruction that seems to have rummaged through this area. However, we found the best and most perfect location inside of the sewers out of all of the possible locations this could have been. Not only does the light just shine down perfectly, but surprisingly enough, sewers aren't the worst place to make sure that the grass stays as green as possible. ODST, there weren't very many locations that we really wanted to include on this list, but there was one specifically that just fit the vibe so perfectly, and that of course was Squidhenge on Mombasa streets. There's not only something atmospheric about ODST, but this little area where there's grass and pillars and these nice little glyphs to look at and study just kind of serve for the perfect archaeological spot to come and hang out. We even asked legendary and lasso deathless runner Thesis what he thought while he was streaming, and this was what he thought.
Grass and Halo. That's some nice grass. You know, the grass on Mombasa streets is pretty nice. You thought about that, Rock itself? This is some pretty nice grass right here, bro. I know there's not a lot of it, but like, that's some nice grass, dude. Some really well-kept grass.
Uplift Reserve. Surprisingly, this entire zoo has grass everywhere from one end to the other, except it's all sunburnt and yellow and orange, and honestly, not top grass tier for a Halo game. So as much as I love ODST, this one's not making the cut. So let's go ahead and now move on to Halo Reach. This game is a little more involved because there's a lot of different locations we can think of that definitely have grass, but then at the same time, we didn't really know if the grass locations were ideal grass locations. So we had to go to each individual section to take a look around. First, we loaded up on Winter Contingency because the load screen already has a ton of greens on it. And yeah, throughout this level, there are a bunch of nice areas, and you can really tell that the people of Reach are into picnics big time. Like for instance, right off the get-go, there's this little farm area where you could just have a nice little walk and then some good places to sit and relax. But even later on, there is this big open field with a river and this nice waterfall. So now that we know that the people of Reach enjoy picnics, we thought there would have to be other places on this planet that have great places to go for these type of occurrences. So next we loaded up on Exodus, and first we found all these little elevated grass areas all across the city. Now, these aren't perfect sitting locations to have a picnic, but they are good enough to at least touch some grass as a modern city boy. But then we realized there's also these food areas with picnic tables, but they're not on the grass, which was a major letdown. We checked New Alexandria next. We got to this club area, not really the best atmosphere for a picnic. The music is kind of loud too. We checked the hospital, and there are these elevated grass beds, but they're not ideal for getting up there and sitting around all day. They even have some grass on the inside, but who wants to picnic at a hospital? Then over at the Ivory Tower, there wasn't really anything new to be offered here either. But then we found this beautiful area on one of the rooftops that has like these benches built into this grass area, and there is some nice trees. And if you live in this building, you could have an amazing picnic here. It's very scenic. There's this nice view of burning buildings in the distance, and it looks like there is even a concession stand that probably would be open if Reach wasn't under attack. So the picnic just kind of comes with the building, which is really cool. Nightfall, we were on the fence of because typically darker levels and nighttime levels aren't the best atmosphere for picnics, but Nightfall is actually maybe nice for a romantic night, and you could do some Guta watching if you wanted to. Shifting gears to the multiplayer side of things, we have Forge World, which earlier we said that we are going to pick one of the Blood Gulches or one location per map variant or whatever. So we thought that Forge World is the ultimate version of Blood Gulch because it's by far the most grassy Blood Gulch that there is, and there's even other areas of Forge World besides the main Blood Gulch area that have some great grass areas as well, like over here overlooking the water, or over here overlooking the water, or even up here overlooking the water. Oh, and there's this area that overlooks the water. Over on Tempest, while a lot of the grass is actually brown, there are some green patches, which means that if you kind of pick the right area, you could find some good grass to touch. And you can think about the mysterious ring that's in the sky, because we still don't know what Halo ring this level takes place on. And then we absolutely loved Highlands for a nice scenic view. You can have this little area right here, which literally was designed obviously for picnic and family trips in mind, because you can pull right over here, take some pictures with the fam, and continue your evacuation plans of the planet Reach. Okay, then we wanted to look to Halo Reach's breakpoint, and when we looked around, there wasn't really much grass to appreciate. Next up was Halo 4, and Requiem doesn't offer much, but there are a few grass patches after you get out of the cave at the beginning, and there is this very nice view with these Forerunner things in the skybox. What better place though to have a picnic than in the middle of the forest? And even better, a forest on a faraway planet, or a shield world, or whatever this goofy storytelling is. What we're trying to say is Infinity is a great level and a perfect location for a picnic at the very least. The first part of this level has a lot of nature, and that's pretty cool. Now when it comes to the rest of Halo 4's campaign though, it kind of doesn't have a lot of grass. It's like saying knowing trees, I understand the meaning of patience. Knowing grass, I can appreciate persistence. When it comes to multiplayer maps, if you can look past the big crashed ship and the military equipment, Exile has some nice grass to touch. Now, Ravine is one of the most green maps in all of Halo so far. It's actually super green, and it seems like there's grass everywhere. This might have been the smaller replacement to Forge World before we got an actual Forge canvas in Halo 4 back in the day, but we can at least appreciate the abundance of grass, which is a core mechanic of Halo. We can look to the level Shatter, which is very green, but it's really not grass green. It's more like cave green. Vertigo, on the other hand, is close, but it's a little bit too much of a beach feeling. And while we already picked Valhalla as the definitive version of this location, Ragnarok isn't picked for our list here because all the grass, for whatever reason, looks like they poured a bunch of sand over it, which kind of ruins the whole grassy aesthetic that we loved about the original. Halo 4's Longbow has these really nice trees that are from some special alien planet or something, but there wasn't really a lot of grass to appreciate or look at here. And then there was one more map we looked at, Daybreak, which, oof, this is some of the worst maintained grass we have ever seen. And then we wanted to include Spartan Ops because while there are a lot of reused maps for multiplayer and the campaign, there are some unique locations like an Unfinished Business, which is a little reminiscent of the back half of Uprising from Halo 2, just with a little more sand. But there is at the very least a lot of green. Halo 2 Anniversary, they had multiplayer maps introduced. Barely any of the maps had any grass on them. There's a few patches over here on Shrine, but yeah, that's gonna be about it. Halo Online, that canceled Russia-only free-to-play Halo game that actually existed, or at least existed for a brief amount of time, had a remake of Avalanche, but this time there was no snow, so we were optimistic, but they made it a desert. So there's still no grass here, so still a F tier level. Okay, so when it comes to Halo 5, Luke and I have been actively working on this video topic for a couple of months now, just poring over all the Halo games, finding the ideal grassy locations. Matter of fact, this was one of the video topics we wanted to cover when we first started Rocket's Loft. So y'all can't say we're running out of ideas because this was one of our original ideas. But the one thing that we both agree on is that Alpine is like the worst looking grass map we have ever seen in our life. The grass has these weird streaks through it, and sometimes it looks like there is some sand or some weird growth, and for this being a default Forge map, it's just very meh. Like, the textures just aren't appealing looking, and just playing on this map does Halo 5 such an injustice because a lot of the other locations in Halo 5 are actually really nice. Just this one is not one of those nice ones. Next, we turn to Plaza, which we thought would would be a good place to start looking for some picnic areas because it low-key reminds us of New Alexandria. Now, while there is some food areas and some flower pots here and there, there's not too much grass, but then we loaded up on the remix version of this map called Overgrowth, and there's a ton of grass everywhere, similar to that ghost town vibe of a city being taken out by nature. So this one was a cool success in a different way. We also looked at Regret, which is the alternative version of Truth. It kind of has the same style going on with grass growing everywhere, but actually it's giving more fall vibes than anything. Halo 5 has a level called Anti-Freeze, which was an official Forge map that started out as a Sidewinder remake, but then turned out differently, but they still didn't even put grass in it, so I don't know what was going on here. Now, Warzone, not to be confused with Modern Warfare 2, actually has two maps that fit with our theme perfectly. Raid on Apex 7 is kind of a remake-ish inspired by Silent Cartographer from CE, which we didn't mention so far since it's more of a beach than it is necessarily a grassy area. Hint, it might be in another video down the road. But Raid on Apex 7 has a lot more green to it, so we can talk about how it is kind of fitting here. Also, it's really difficult to load up on these maps. You have to wait to get them in rotation and then save them. They're not just a part of the regular map pool, which is really weird. And then Urban was also a cool Warzone map that's set in this city, but there's these green spots that are really perfect for some roadside picnics. Okay, we also thought it would be interesting to look to the Halo Wars games as well, and honestly, I was kind of disappointed. For the first Halo Wars game, there isn't really a lot of locations that have really nice grassy settings. Towards the end of the game, there is this, which is a little bit better, I can say at least, but it's not as outstanding as some of the other locations we've looked at so far. Halo Wars 2, on the other hand, starts off with some grassy locations, though it does seem to be that type of grass that is mixed with sand. And was it just me, or did Halo Wars 2 not have a lot of different set pieces for battling as far as the campaign side of things were concerned? It really could have done better with even more grass, so I mean, if you had to have a picnic in Halo Wars or Halo Wars 2, you probably could find a place to do it, but I do think there's better locations out there. Halo Fireteam Raven. Now, this is an interesting one, but yeah, you know what? There are a couple of places that are really grassy that would serve as an okay place to have a picnic on. We don't really get to stop and smell the grass when we're playing Fireteam Raven because we don't have the freedom to look around and travel or traverse the area, but we do get to see some grassy areas, so at the very least, there's one level in there that would be good for this. Then we get to Halo Infinite. Now, Halo Infinite has been criticized for not having a lot of biodiversity in its campaign, which is a fair criticism, but we can't get any closer to what the antithesis of what Halo is without enjoying and appreciating the grassy areas throughout Halo Infinite's campaign. The main open world area is just chocked to the brim of different grassy locales where you can eat some sandwiches or whatever people eat on picnics or whatever. I know Luke's the type of person who will pack up a filet mignon and eat it on a picnic or something, at least I think. Nonetheless, the open world of Halo Infinite does nail the grass aesthetic perfectly. This actually might be the best bang for your buck if you're going on a picnic vacation, you know, minus the like whole apocalyptic stuff going on that could end the universe at any given moment. We'll just kind of let that one slide. We looked to the multiplayer to see what we could find, and Aquarius is where they make good grass, but it isn't necessarily the best for grassy patches or anything like that. We had a lot of potential when it came to maps like Fragmentation or High Power, but ended up being kind of meh. I mean, they're not grassy enough. There is a lot of sand here as well, and honestly, I hate sand. And then we turn to Live Fire, which does have a lot of grassy locations, but it probably isn't the best spot for a picnic because it's a literal shooting range. And just pointing that out, you know, it's the obvious. Is this really all of Halo Infinite? Do we really not have any more grassy areas in Infinite? That's kind of wild. But we decided to take things a step further here. Now, Halo Infinite released Forge mode, and we thought, since we have the technology and the power now, something we never had before, what if we go into this Forge mode and we create the absolute peak perfected picnic experience in the grassiest field you could ever imagine? And that's exactly what we did. And we honestly worked on this for way longer than we probably should have. This could have been done probably in just a couple of minutes, but no, we took it a step further, and we also had to learn how to forge, which is a whole nother story. But you know what? Look at this art piece that we made. This is A true classic masterpiece that we were proud of. We even had the picnic tables, we had the sandwiches, we had vehicles that we could drive around because why not? But the one thing we really learned is that even when Halo is in some of the toughest spots that it could ever be in, no matter how challenging it may seem to be a Halo fan from time to time, we always have to remember that at the end of the day, we can appreciate the little things, like the design of grass across 2 decades of game development. And I don't know, I think it's kind of funny. But hey, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys check out our new channel, Rocket One, where we talk about various things like Shadow the Hedgehog being an emo icon of the early 2000s. We need to really thank our patrons because videos like this don't normally go viral or anything, so we don't get a whole lot of ad revenue when we do these. Literally, our supporters on Patreon give us the excuse to get to make these types of videos that are a little more out there, a little more fun. If you want to become a supporter, throwing a couple of bucks our way does actually support us significantly. So you can always consider joining up, get your name in the videos, which is kind of cool. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time with a new video.